កាលដែលគេបំបីខ្ញុំទាំងអស់គ្នាហើយបញ្ជូនមកកំពង់ឆ្នាំង
When my group was separate from the main group and sent to Kampong Chhnang Airfield, I was removed from my duty and I was no longer a soldier, but a laborer working or engaging in labor at the airfield.
មានសិទ្ធិជាយោធាហើយមានតែសិទ្ធិជាពលករដែរដើម្បីបញ្ចេញពលកម្មប៉ុណ្ណោះ
The voice you just heard was once a loyal soldier of the Revolutionary Army of Kampuchea. That man is Hean Socheata. This is Krahaam Podcast, a documentary storytelling journey where Cambodian Gen Z return to the Khmer Rouge regime through lived stories, honoring resilience and passing memory forward. And this season, we retrace the Khmer Rouge common purpose, the so-called Great Leap Forward, to understand how it was designed, how it unfolded, and why it still matters today. We are exploring one of the darkest worksites of the Khmer Rouge era, a place shaped by forced labor, starvation, and silent killings. But the bigger question is this: why did the Khmer Rouge design these worksites this way? And how did they become places built on crimes against humanity? In this episode, the story is reported by Seak Meihouy. This is a heavy topic. Tune in when you are ready.
Hean pledged his loyalty to the revolution. By 1973, during the Civil War, like many young men of his generation, he joined the Revolutionary Army of Kampuchea to fight the Lon Nol regime. To him, it was the right decision to protect his people and to rebuild the nation. In his testimony before the extraordinary chambers in the Court of Cambodia, ECCC, in 2015, Hean explained why he joined the revolution.
មូលហេតុដែលខ្ញុំចូលបម្រើការងារបដិវត្តក្នុងជួរកងទ័ពនេះដោយលន់ណោធ្វើរដ្ឋប្រហារសម្ដេចព្រះសីហនុ
I joined the revolution because of the coup d'etat of Lon Nol to topple late King Sihanouk. He appealed to his children to go into the markets in order to overthrow the Lon Nol regimes. That is why I joined the revolution at that time with other people.
ដូច្នេះបានជាខ្ញុំចូលធ្វើបដិវត្តទៅនឹងគេទៅ
But under the Khmer Rouge, loyalty alone was never enough. In early 1977, Hean was stripped of his uniform, removed from his unit, and told he was no longer a soldier. He was reassigned to Kampong Chhnang Airfield, not as a punishment he was told, but for work.
ខ្ញុំលែងមានសិទ្ធិជាយោធាហើយ
I was removed from my duty and I was no longer a soldier, but a laborer engaging in heavy duty work at the airfield.
ដើម្បីបញ្ចេញពលកម្មប៉ុណ្ណោះ
At that time, Hean had no idea what was waiting for him there. Hean's story revealed how Khmer Rouge worksites were not development projects, but instruments of control. Under the common purpose, forced labor sites like Kampong Chhnang Airfield punish suspected enemies, weaken bodies, and affect the regime's security system. Later, the court recognized them as a crimes against humanity. Born in 1947, Hean grew up in a farming family in Tang Roling village, Kampong Chhnang province. After April 1975, he was placed in the regular armed forces and served in Division 310, one of the Khmer Rouge structured military divisions that continue under Democratic Kampuchea. For nearly 2 years, he served as a loyal soldier, but everything began to change. In early 1977, the Khmer Rouge leader accused senior commanders in Division 310 for plotting a rebellion. These accusations triggered a wave of arrests. One by one, commanders in Hum Han Division disappeared. They were arrested and sent to S21 in Phnom Penh, and none of them returned. Soon, suspicion moved downward to lower-ranking soldiers. Many began living with the fear that they might be next. Men like Hum Han, who had been loyal from the beginning, suddenly found themselves accused of being connected to what the leadership called a traitorous network. He told the court that he never learned what he had supposedly done wrong.
គេកំណត់ថាយើងក្បត់
They decided that we were considered traitorous, and we were placed in the so-called Unit 17, and there were 50 of us. However, allow me to say it clearly before the court that I didn't know why we were accused of being
តែ
traitors.
សូមបញ្ជាក់ជូនតុលាការថាខ្ញុំមិនដឹងជារឿងក្បត់អីទេខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងខ្លួនផង
But before following Hum Han into the airfield, it is important to understand how worksite function first. According to findings of the court, worksites were a core component of the Khmer Rouge leadership's common purpose, a nationwide policy to transform society through forced labor, surveillance, and control. On the surface, these sites looked like national development projects and were promoted as essential to rebuilding the country after years of conflict and war. The Khmer Rouge emphasized self-reliance, dams, canals, rice fields, roads, and military infrastructure. However, beneath that image was a system that demanded more labor than bodies could give. Across the country, worksites followed the same pattern. Workers organized into units, constant monitoring, minimal food, and almost no medical care. At some sites, dangerous tasks such as rock blasting led to frequent injuries and death. Among all the worksites in the country, one was specially feared among the people, the Kampong Chhnang Airfield, the worksite that Hum Han is sent to. Officially, it was presented as a military project, a massive international airport with a 2,400-meter runway, control tower, and stone quarry. The court later found that the airfield was also used as a site where post soldiers and suspected internal enemy were sent under the regime's security policy. This was the destination that awaits Hum Han. When Hum Han arrived at the Kampong Chhnang Airfield, the site was small. He remembered about 100 workers spread across the open ground. By early 1977, more groups were brought in. He described the site as overwhelmingly crowded, with people packed so tightly that he could see only heads everywhere. Most workers were already thin and exhausted from earlier assignments, long before they reached the airfield. Work began before sunrise and often continued late into the night. Workers were assigned to dug earth, carry soil, level ground, and broke stone in the quarry. Rock blasting was especially dangerous. Explosive fuses for the blasting were too short. Stone flew outward, injuring and killing workers nearby. People slept directly on the ground, without mats, nets, or shelter, and with no medical care. The situation got worse. Malaria spread quickly. With too little food and no effective treatment, these injury, illness, and death became foreseeable outcomes. For Hum Han, it became the place where loyalty to the revolution turned into a daily fight to stay alive.
បើគ្រាន់តែដឹកនឹងជញ្ជូនមិនអីទេតែរបួសថងវាយបង្រៀបអាហ្នឹង
For rock carrying and transportation, there were no injury, but breaking the rock caused injury. My unit was assigned to break and level the rock, and some workers died as a result of the fragment caused from the blast of the rock breaking process.
បែកថ្មខ្ទាតត្រូវមួយមានស្លាប់នឹងឃើញ
Supervision at the airfield was strict. Cadres enforced discipline and constantly reminded the workers that refusal or slow work could lead to death. Hum Han also recalled seeing group of workers taken away by truck and never returning. This led to an unsettling question: where did the disappeared workers go? During the K002 trial, former soldier Gao Kin, who also worked at the Kampong Chhnang Airfield, offered part of the answer. He testified that arrests happened quietly and without warning. Some nights, 2 or 3 trucks left the airfield around 7 or 8 o'clock, heading toward Phnom Penh. Those taken away were never seen again. Over time, everyone at the site understood that once someone was removed, their fate was sealed. Gao Kin recalled one of those nights.
បាទខ្ញុំឃើញគេក៏ហៅប្រជុំអញ្ចឹងទៅគេចុង They were called to a meeting and then they point a gun at them. Those people were shocked as they were in an office and the door was closed so they could not escape. Guard was stationed outside. They were tied up and put into truck. គេចោលដាក់ឡាន
Later, investigation provided answer to what survivor had long questioned. The court found that the trucks were carrying people into the Khmer Rouge security system, including F-21 in Phnom Penh, where they were interrogated, tortured, and executed without trial. When Vietnamese forces advanced in January 1979, the Kampong Chhnang Airfield collapsed almost overnight. Some workers, including Hum Han, were ordered into the nearby mountain to fight the Vietnamese. Others fled into the forest in an attempt to survive. Hum Han managed to escape. Decades later, in 2015, he appeared before the court, not as a soldier or suspect, but as a witness. In case 002, the court concluded that conditions at Kampong Chhnang Airfield constituted forced labor and other inhuman acts as a crime against humanity. The site was part of a nationwide policy designed to control, punish, and eliminate those the regime no longer trusted.
The chamber finds that during the democratic Kampuchea period, there exists a policy to establish and operate cooperative and worksites, viewed as the primary instrument for waging class struggle and intended to create a labor and production force of strictly controlled people. The following crime sites are part of case 002/02. In this regard, the Tram Kok Cooperative, the Tapiang Tmo Dam worksite, the 1st January Dam worksite, and the Kampong Chhnang Airfield construction site.
Noon Ji and Khieu Samphan were held criminally responsible for designing and implementing this policy. Hum Han survived a system that pushed human body beyond the limit and made many others disappear. After intensive research and listening to Hum Han's journey at the Kampong Chhnang Airfield, we as a group of Gen Z was forced to deeply reflect on the Khmer Rouge period that none of us had lived through. One of the main ideas we discussed in our group was access to information. As we grew up in a world of technology, we are able to access a great deal of information, which in turn help us make informed decisions. In contrast, Hum Han generation did not. He grew up in a world where information was extremely limited, if not non-existent. It was for this reason that he was pushed to join the Khmer Rouge revolution, as he believed it was the right decision to do to protect his people and help rebuild the nation. As a group of journalism students, this sparked many conversations among us about how essential reliable information is in our digital world, especially during time of border conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. Furthermore, what stayed with us the most during our research was how quickly Hum Hon went from being a loyal soldier to a disposable laborer, without explanation, without trial, and without evidence. Mere suspicion was enough for the Khmer Rouge to label Hum Hon a traitor. These make us reflect on how cruel the region was and the lands the Khmer Rouge would go to in order to achieve its policy, the Great Leap Forward, a policy that was ultimately shaped for nothing but failure. As a younger generation, we believe our responsibility is not only to listen, but also to deeply learn and reflect on the past. Learning about the Khmer Rouge help us understand how dangerous misinformation and unchecked power can be. With our easy access to information today, we believe we must question what we are told, think critically, and learn from past mistakes, so that dark history, such as Khmer Rouge period, are never repeated.
Through Hum Hon's journey, we see how people were forced to work from before sunrise until late night, sleeping on bare ground and surviving on little food while living like prisoners without walls. But this suffering did not happen only at the Kampong Chhnang Airfield. Across Cambodia, most worksites became places where people were pushed beyond human limits, punished for small mistakes, and erased once they were no longer trusted. In the end, the system failed because it destroyed the very people forced to build it. Many people disappeared from the worksites. No one knew where they went. They only knew that those people never came back. Some were taken to security centers to be questioned and tortured. Others were taken away and killed. Under the Khmer Rouge, once you were accused of being an enemy, there was no way to come back. In the next episode of the Krahaam Podcast, we follow where the disappeared went into the security system and into silence. This story is produced by Chea Sokheng, written by Chanthida, researched by Srin Savant, audio edited by Mao Sambath, reported by Seak Meihouy, and supervised by Hean Socheata and Nov Povleakhena. Krahaam Podcast is the product of a final assignment submitted for the broadcast journalism and podcast production at the Department of Media and Communications of the Royal University of Phnom Penh. Thanks to the ECCC Resource Center for extensive support through the research of the Judicial Archive. Until next time.